Another headline making news: the Pentagon has formally dropped its controversial COVID-19 vaccine mandate for troops. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin issuing a new memo stating in part no individuals currently serving in the armed forces shall be separated solely on the basis of their refusal to receive the COVID-19 vaccination if they sought an accommodation on religious, administrative, or medical grounds. The military departments will update the records of such individuals to remove any adverse actions solely associated with denials of such requests, including letters of reprimand. So with that, we're going to bring in Brandi King, was an Air Force reservist, lieutenant colonel, who says she was fired after she wouldn't get the vaccine. David Kroll, a retired member of the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard. And Davis Younts is a military attorney who joins us live now. So thank you all three for joining us here. And I wanted to start with the stories, and then I'll get to Davis. And Brandi, if I can start with you. You submitted religious and medical exemptions, which was at the start of this, what many people did. You were denied that. Can you explain what happened? And then fast forward to today, knowing that the mandate and the reprimand, if you didn't receive the vaccine, that's all gone now. Your thoughts?
Yes, so I was actually terminated within hours of verbalizing my sincerely held religious beliefs, and subsequently submitted a religious accommodation and medical exemption request. All were denied. I was then given a letter of reprimand, or a general officer memorandum of reprimand, and separated involuntarily to basically a holding tank that is the IRR in the Air Force Reserve Command. So I lost my income, my health care, and any ability to accrue points for my retirement after 19 and a half years of service. I've subsequently asked to be reinstated. I've asked for back pay. I've asked for my letter of reprimand to be removed from my file. And I've been denied and told that I do not qualify for any of those because I am separated into the IRR, where eventually I will be completely removed from any military service within probably the next year or so. So I have no means by which to finish out my career honorably or to receive a retirement for the years of service, almost 2 decades that I've put in. It's heartbreaking.
Wow. Wow. And I'll get back to you in just a second. David, I want to go to you. Obviously, I'm sure you were able to handle this differently. You did retire. Is that correct?
Sean, that is correct. And thanks once again for having me on here. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And Brandi, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through this. You, Davis, and the rest of the men and women that have served honorably, that continue to want to serve honorably. This is a tragedy. This is a tragedy. We're led by eunuchs in this country, both political and military, and they need to be held accountable.
Davis, the Pentagon now saying it's considering back pay for service members who were discharged for not receiving the jab. Is that likely? Do you think that legal action can be taken? You are talking about, and I understand factually speaking, it was more than 90% that complied, and a high compliance rate in terms of getting the COVID-19 vaccine. But again, stories like Brandi specifically, obviously David as well in his own form. But then your experience too, Davis, what is next legally?
Well, we don't know. The problem that we have is that the Pentagon has shown consistently an animosity against those of religious faith and who fought back against this. So I have grave concerns of what the policy is going to be moving forward. I'm not optimistic at this point. And even the memo itself dumps people into situations where they have to seek redress through the Discharge Review Board or the Board of Corrections for Military Records. While that is a legal process to try to help these people out, it can take over 2 years, and the boards spend 3 to 5 minutes per package, and there's a huge backlog. So I'm not sure that's meaningful relief. In addition, there's been nothing done to address people in Lieutenant Colonel King, Brandi King's situation in the IRR. There are thousands of those people. There are thousands of people that are unaccounted for that retired like early, like David, that left early, like David. And we still have those who were fired from leadership positions. I have clients that were commanders that were fired just like Lieutenant Colonel King simply because of their religious faith. Nothing so far in this memo addresses that. And I'm concerned that the animosity, the anger, the bitterness towards those who submit an accommodation is going to be a part of policy moving forward. So I think Congress is going to have to act to do more before we see meaningful relief.
Yeah, Brandi, I'll go back to you on your story. I mean, that's experience, that is training that you cannot get back, and many would argue to say that that is training and experience that the United States military needs. Was let go. If you tried that today, it would not be the case because Secretary of Defense has dropped that mandate. When you heard that news, how did you react?
When I heard that the mandate was dropped, I was extremely happy for my brothers and sisters in service who stood up for their religious rights and their First Amendment rights, God-given rights, and I supported the rescission of the mandate. I knew immediately, because of the last year and a half of my experience dealing with the current military leaders in Department of Defense, that it would not pertain to me. And I knew that it would not pertain to thousands, almost 9,000 people who have already been separated involuntarily, or early retirements, or whatever coercive actions were taken against them to lead to that point. So I was a little heartbroken yet, but I'm hopeful that we can restore trust in our leadership by reconciliation and peace, and moving towards making people whole, and doing that so that we can regain my family's trust, my neighborhood's trust, my church's trust, my community's trust in those that are appointed over us in the military to protect, support, and defend our Constitution.
Final thoughts here, David. We know that the FDA and the CDC, and this happened over the weekend, by the way, have announced that they are investigating links with the Pfizer COVID vaccine and stroke for those over the age of 65 and older, specifically within the first couple of weeks there. Again, this was major news when this came out over the weekend here. There was also talk about potential for myocarditis for men under the age of 40. So clearly having the information today versus looking back here, talk to me about that. Could that have been a concern for Brandi, for yourself, for others out there that may said, hey, let me just wait, this is new. And here we are today with the CDC investigating these links.
Sean, that's all anybody ever wanted, was for military leadership to pump the brakes, because this was happening so fast. They cannot feign ignorance about our concerns. We've been sounding the alarm from the very beginning. This is not unheard of. They know they need to be held accountable for their actions. The truth is coming out.
All right, let me get to Davis really quickly on that same topic there. Again, as we know, the FDA, CDC now investigating a link between the Pfizer vaccine and stroke over the age of 65. Your thoughts on that?
I think I'm glad it's finally coming out, but there was evidence, there was issues related to this. There were people that were censored. Good doctors were censored early on. This was a concern. And again, we were taking a product with no long-term studies, because it's a new product, no long-term studies about its efficacy or about its safety, and giving it to our military members when a time when readiness is as important as it's ever been. Some of the fittest people in the world, most of my clients had already had COVID. So we see that, and I have grave concerns with the politicization of decisions to give people like Navy SEALs, Coast Guard rescue swimmers, pilots like Lieutenant Colonel King, an experimental product throughout all of this. So that's been one of the grave concerns, just practically in the way this was rolled out, the rush to do this. So hopefully we continue to see new studies. Hopefully the censorship decreases and changes can be made, because military readiness is huge. And again, we just need the Pentagon leadership to follow the law that's in place, and a lot of this would have been avoided.
For the Secretary of Defense to come out and say they will no longer fire you if you decide not to get the vaccine or the booster, that is a complete 180, especially for the folks here on your screen in the middle. We appreciate the time of Brandi King, David Kroll, and Davis Younts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.